On April 25th, the FDA's advisory committee voted against approving, and it was a 7-6 vote, a drug made by a company called Sarepta Therapeutics. And even though this was just a recommendation from an advisory committee, which means it's not an actual denial just yet, this was a real heartbreak of a decision.
Big time. Listen, this drug is designed to treat patients with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, or DMD. And this is a very, very tough to treat disease. There's no approved medicines that can curb it. And sadly, most patients with it succumb to their disease in their 30s. So there was a tremendous amount of emotion associated with this meeting. And just to back up for a second for listeners, I think everyone that's listening to the program probably knows that the FDA is responsible for approving drugs. And those approvals are based on a company's ability to show that the drug is both safe and that it also works, or it improves the condition for patients. Prior to that approval, though, the FDA will convene a committee of experts to discuss the merits of the drug. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the advisory committee meeting at the end of April that discussed the pros and cons associated with this drug, and that, sadly for patients, wasn't able to put its full support behind giving this drug an early approval.
And of course, the FDA doesn't have to follow what the advisory committee says, but they usually do.
Typically they do. This could be, right, I mean, we're going to, all sorts of exceptions and who knows, right? But this could be a scenario where they do look at the whole body of evidence and weight patient testimonials more heavily than maybe they would in other disease indications. And that's based on the fact that, if you listen to the FDA's comments from their, head of drug development, or drug evaluation, I should say, Janet Woodcock seemed to indicate some support for, erring on the side of caution as far as approving a drug that may help this tough to treat indication. Whether or not that pans out with an FDA green light at the end of May, when the official decision is supposed to come, is anyone's guess. But that's what a lot of industry watchers are thinking, and a lot of patients are hoping for.
Yeah, I would agree that Janet Woodcock's commentary did seem to be the one bright spot out of this thumbs down from the advisory committee, because she carries a lot of weight in these decisions, and she made comments that were seemingly pretty positive. But the thing is, this wasn't really your traditional trial. It was a trial of 12 patients. They used a quote unquote historical control group, meaning that it wasn't your standard trial where you have a treated group and a control group and you can compare them. So the efficacy of this drug is a little bit questionable at this point. And the other side of that coin is it's also going to be very, very expensive. So there's that side of things to consider as well.
Right. We're not talking about, okay, let's approve a drug that you can go down to Rite Aid and buy, like vitamin C for $6 a bottle. This is a rare disease. It only affects 50,000 people in the world, or in the developed world. And of those 50,000 people, it only targets about 13% of them. So only about, 5,000 or 6,000 of these patients are amenable to the way this drug works. So you're talking about a very small patient population. In preparation for today's conversation, I did take a look through the briefing documents that the FDA had sent to the AdCom committee prior to their review. And I wanted to just go over one quote, because it really talks to the point you just made about the trial size and the trial design. And in the briefing documents, the FDA wrote, "The FDA has concerns regarding the comparability of the treatment groups and the overall persuasiveness of the historical control comparison as described in the briefing materials. In fact, the clinical course of the 12 patients participating in the study appears to be within the expected natural history of DMD." So you could see going into the AdCom meeting, the FDA is saying, okay, we've got a very small patient population. What is being reported is not, it's within what would be expected normally in the course of this disease. Probably, some periods where things are good and other periods where things are bad. So who knows whether or not this was a placebo effect where people knew they were getting the drug and they felt better because of that. And, Christine, I mean, this is a science organization, right?
Indeed.
So, they've got to look at the science. They're looking to see if there's an actual scientifically provable fact that this drug improves outcomes for these patients. And I think when push came to shove, the AdCom committee, as much as they wanted to be able to say, yes, approve this drug, they couldn't reconcile that.
Yeah. So emotions aside, because obviously there are a lot of emotions tied up with this disease, as an investor, what would be next for Sarepta if the FDA says no come May 26th?
Right. So there are a couple options here. May 26th, the FDA is going to give their official go, no go. If they say go, they'll probably require a confirmatory trial. Likely, every patient that's available for this drug in the US, if it's approved, is going to take it, right? There's no approved treatments. This is a devastating disease. So you're talking about a patient population of a couple thousand probably in the US. Who knows what the pricing of this drug could be? Rare disease drugs, oftentimes they'll carry six-figure price tags. If they price it at $100,000, a couple thousand people take it. That's $200 million in sales. The market cap in this company, though, is already $834 million. So investors need to think about that. Okay, is this already pricing in the potential for approval? If the FDA gives a no-go decision, then Sarepta's in a tough spot because it has to say, okay, well, do we now invest in a placebo-controlled study that is going to cost us a lot of money and could take 1-2 years before we can get back in front of the FDA? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know how that's going to play out. They have $192 million in cash on the books, and their operating expenses were $220 million last year. So I'm not sure. This is a risky stock in my view.
Extremely risky. This is definitely a make or break kind of story.